uh, Jerry and his people down at the Kentucky Mesnet, the Kentucky Climate Center, and also Chip Zimmer over at the Kentucky Division of Water. Our next monthly webinar is scheduled for August 1st, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. Jerry, that's right around the corner. We had to postpone this month because of the 4th of July last Thursday, but we'll be having another one here soon after. But we are live streaming on YouTube. Feel free to share with other folks, friends, and family after we're done today. And any questions, I'll share those emails at the end of the webinar. But just get started. We went through the month of May. And I guess whenever I do these webinars, I'm kind of focused on agriculture. And we were having a tough time, farmers across the state getting all of their corn and beans in the ground because of how wet it was in May. It was our sixth wettest May on record. I was talking to my buddies here in the department. They're cattle producers and they're wanting to make some hay and they just couldn't find that 4-day window. So again, they're like, Matt, we need some dry conditions. Farmers, we need some dry conditions to get corn and beans in the ground. Well, I gotta say, we gotta be careful what we wish for because it kind of went in the opposite direction in the month of June, especially across the eastern half of the state. And seems like Mother Nature works that way sometimes. We're wanting something and then we get too much of it. And at this point, we're getting too much in the way of dry conditions. But this is a look at Spilltop Research Farm just north of Lexington. I was out there yesterday looking at some of the fields. It was a nice day. It was a cooler day following the passage of that hurricane that moved through the area, lower dew points, lower temperatures. So the corn didn't look terrible. Most of the corn didn't look terrible, but I did find this field and you can kind of see the corn starting to twist, starting to curl up. And that's a sign of heat stress out there. And just going by the fact that this happened on a relatively cool day, it's not ideal moving forward because the rest of this week, especially over the weekend and into early next work week, it's going to get extremely hot. Evapotranspiration rates are going to be on the increase. And it's just not looking good for the corn crop in this area of the state of Kentucky, let alone the rest of the state. But just our typical outline today, going over the recent conditions, any impacts on the agricultural side, taking a look at the forecasts and the outlooks, quick summary, and then I'll open it up for questions and discussion. Over here on the left, I thought I'd include this picture from the Kentucky Mesnet. Their technician was at the Shelby County Mesnet station on June 26th, and he was fighting the heat just like the rest of us. So, whenever it gets this hot outside, we really need to take precautions for ourselves. I always tell folks during the summer months, heat can be very sneaky. And if you're not taking consistent breaks, if you're a person that works outside consistently, whether that's in agriculture, whether that's construction, you name it, heat exhaustion can really creep up on you fast. You need to stay hydrated, wear light colored clothing, drink plenty of water, you name it. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're getting dizzy out there and eventually faint, get nauseous, you name it. So take this heat seriously. We did get a break last night and somewhat today, but it's all going to be coming back here pretty soon. We've had some heat advisories issued throughout the month of June, and by all the signs and the forecast, we're going to have some more over probably this next upcoming week. But lower left picture, severe weather was, I don't want to say non-existent during the month of June, but with how dry it was for most of the state, we just simply didn't see a lot of severe weather. But this was a storm system that popped up on June 30th to end the month of June, a little supercell thunderstorm in Marion County over there on the far right, overlooking this pasture, where it looks like they just baled some hay. So, but supercell thunderstorm, that's a rotating thunderstorm. These are your thunderstorms that are going to produce the hail, the tornadoes, damaging winds. These are the strongest thunderstorm type of thunderstorms you can typically get. So, looking at the past 7 days, of course, all eyes were on the remnants of that hurricane passing into the Ohio Valley. Um, I've been talking to farmers around here. It's like, man, Matt, we really need a hurricane to come up from the Gulf of Mexico and save us. Well, it happened, but the highest accumulations were really to our northwest, kind of up through Illinois and Indiana. Portions of Western Kentucky did get some decent accumulations over the past week. Portions of the northern bluegrass, north central Kentucky have seen some decent accumulations. But to me, it would have been ideal if the track of this heaviest rainfall would have been shifted a little farther east, because portions of the southern bluegrass have really been missing out on rainfall this past month. So over the past 7 days, the state's averaged about 1.5 inches, but you see some folks in Western Kentucky, 3+ inches, but some folks in our area, Lexington, the Mesonet station here on the south side of the county only registered about 3/4 of an inch. So quite the range we're seeing from one side of the state to the other. Some folks down there in the Cumberland region, only 2/10 of an inch. So really depends on where you were at across the state in relation to the hurricane, remnants of that hurricane moving through. Going back the past 30 days, average of 2.98 inches across the state, which is approaching 2 inches above normal. Portions of Western Kentucky, Central Kentucky were closer to normal. Looking down there at Warren County, you guys were around 5 inches over the past 30 days. But again, I keep talking about that hot spot in the southern bluegrass. If we look at this previous page, past 7 days, almost 3/4 of an inch for Fayette County. I go to the past 30 days, that number only rises to 1.8. So we only added an inch if we take into account the other 21 days over this, or other 3 weeks over this 30-day period. So it's not much. We see a hot spot there, 0.79, just west of Lexington. But bottom line, it's not great, especially this time of year when evapotranspiration rates are elevated. Going back the past 60 days, we're now getting into the month of May, which was relatively wet for the Bluegrass Day. Again, it was our 6th wettest May on record, and the highest totals associated with that May were found in Western and Central Kentucky. You see values of almost 17 inches down there in Fulton County, 14 up there in, what is that, Ballard County, 10.82 in Union County. But again, the higher totals are situated across Western Kentucky. You come back to the Bluegrass region, I see 4.28. I see 8.26. Some cases, half of what Western Kentucky, or more than half of what Western Kentucky saw over this 60-day period. Going back 90 days, now taking into account the start of the growing season, going back into the month of April. And again, you see that difference from the eastern half of Kentucky to the western half of Kentucky. So during this 90-day period, the state's average almost 15 inches, which is slightly above normal. But again, looking at that difference across the state is key, especially where agriculture currently sits right now. Looking at departure from normal at that 30-day up in the upper left-hand corner, big portion of eastern half of Kentucky is in that 2 to 4 inches below normal over the past 30 days. We are seeing some positive deviations across the Pennyroyal region, some of the Purchase region out in western Kentucky, but that quickly diminishes as you get closer to the Ohio River. Portions of Davies County, Henderson County, they are running 1 to 2 inches below normal over this 30-day period. So again, it was a pretty dry June for most of the state. The state average was 2.90 inches for the month, which is about 1.5 inches below normal. Going back to 60 days, we see those positive deviations with the wettest May on record across the western half of Kentucky, but we're still running 2 to 4 inches below normal across the bluegrass and eastern Kentucky over that period. In 90 days, more of the same. Darker green shades, 6 to 8 inches above normal, just west of Bowling Green down there. But if we look at Fayette County around Lexington, running anywhere from 2 to 6 inches below normal. So opposite ends of the spectrum. So 23rd driest June on record, and we're talking 130 years on the record books now. Looking at temperatures for the month of June, the state average was 74.4 degrees, which is about 2 degrees above normal. This was pushed in that upward direction by a number of 90+ degree days throughout the month. I added a chart here. I looked it up using data from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center. The number of days that each of these four stations hit 90 degrees or exceeded 90 degrees. Jackson, the average over their entire history of that station is 2.3 days per June. They hit 90 degrees or more 10 times this past month. Lexington hit 90 plus 11 times. Bowling Green 14, Paducah 13. And you can see in all those cases, it does exceed that average number of 90-degree days we see during the month of June. Look at the top left-hand picture. This was from the Kentucky Mesonet. They had their June summary put up on social media, and it shows the maximum air temperature for all the Kentucky Mesonet stations across the Bluegrass State. And most everyone hit the low to mid 90s. So it was a toasty month. Luckily, you know, I did say we had some heat advisories, but the humidity maybe wasn't as bad as what it could have been. 2012, everybody remembers that June is, I think it was our driest June or second driest June on record. That was a very dry heat. I wouldn't consider 2024 a dry heat by any means, but it also wasn't extremely humid. We didn't see numerous days with dew points hitting the low to mid 70s here and there, but it wasn't consistent like some of the heat waves in past years. So just like I was talking about in the last slide, one of the driest Junes on record for the state of Kentucky. It was the 26th warmest June on record for the state also. And this has been an extended period of warm weather for Kentucky. In fact, this is our fifth straight month of above normal temperatures in Kentucky, going all the way back to February. So it's been 1 month of above normal temperatures after another. Now, this dry weather and the higher temperatures is having an impact on soil moisture across Kentucky. Looking at current root zone soil moisture conditions, folks in Western Kentucky, Central Kentucky, looking all right at this point. But if you go east and across the Bluegrass in Eastern Kentucky, again, these are the areas that saw below normal precipitation this past month. They're not looking so great. So that root zone soil moisture is starting to tank, and we need some precipitation to replenish the topsoil moisture. Unfortunately, this next week doesn't show any promising signs in the forecast. So this will be something to watch moving forward. Look at the soil moisture percentile over in the top right-hand corner. This is something Chip showed in last month's webinar, but running above normal across Western Kentucky, again, the pennyroyal purchase regions out there, but you get across the eastern half of the state and we're running below normal at this time of year. Topsoil moisture from in the percent short to very short category. We're at 29%. Um, this will be something we'll watch over the upcoming week. I'm sure this will take an increase after this weekend and the high temperatures in the forecast. Stream flows have also taken a turn for the worse over this past month. After a very wet May, we now have some stream flows running below normal, even much below normal in spots. Um, we were looking, whenever I say we, I'm talking about the state drought committee. We were looking at the Ohio River a couple weeks ago, and it was actually running pretty low. And I've been talking to some folks around here, and that's a concern. Obviously, going into the summer and then fall months where we've we've been very dry the past couple falls, and we'd like to not have a third straight year of low river levels in the Mississippi, but it will be on the table. Hopefully, we have some decent rainfall events get through here, but as we'll see in the seasonal drought outlook later, doesn't show much in the way of promising signs. So, this is what the U.S. Drought Monitor looks like right now. This came out this morning, was released this morning, I should say, and about 30% of the bluegrass state is abnormally dry, considered abnormally dry. We have a sliver of northern Kentucky up there, 0.5% that is in a moderate drought. But this has really popped up over the course of June after that wet month of May and the below normal precipitation we've seen across this side of the state. Thing is, we're seeing these dry conditions pop up in Kentucky. There's been some hot spots just to our east. You can see Virginia right there. It's almost entirely covered by moderate drought and severe drought at this time. West Virginia, good portion of the state covered in moderate drought. North Carolina, South Carolina, even a good portion of Tennessee is showing signs of drought down that way. And a big reason for that was, again, our dry June. It was our 23rd driest June on record, but if you look at those states I just mentioned, it was the record driest June in Virginia. It was the 12th driest June ever recorded in West Virginia. It was the second driest June ever recorded in North Carolina. And it, again, there's kind of a hot spot right there where it was extremely dry during the month of June. Now, portions of the northern Great Plains, the Great Lakes region, they were extremely wet. They were on the opposite end of the spectrum. But in our neck of the woods, not exactly what we want to see this time of year. Moving on to severe weather. Severe weather reports were reported as slightly below normal by the Storm Prediction Center in the month of June. It's a little hard to see, but most of the severe weather was located Colorado Plains region going up across the northern half of the United States, which is what you typically would expect during this time of year. Jet stream starts moving farther north, so your storm track really shifts to the north. So here in Kentucky, not much to talk about. Although here recently, we had this hurricane pass through, and I took Noah's social media post. I want to say Noah used to be a broadcast meteorologist over in Paducah. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, so he showed a picture of all the tornado warnings from this hurricane, the remnants of this hurricane passing through the United States, and over 200 warnings in total from July 8th to the 10th, which would be the most since Hurricane Ivan in 2004. So, sure, we see remnant hurricanes move inland uh, multiple times, usually multiple times throughout a year. But this amount of tornadic activity you don't see too often. There's images on social media you all can go look at. I believe there was 65 tornado warnings pushed out by the Shreveport National Weather Service office in one day. So you talk about being busy. this system really brought everybody to the National Weather Service office to really key on radar during this event. But this passed through our area yesterday, Wednesday, and there were a couple tornadoes reported in Western Kentucky. Both were in Union, Kentucky, and both rated EF1 tornadoes with estimated peak winds of 100 and 105 miles per hour, respectively. Saying that, again, if you look at social media, I did not include it on this slide. There was an EF3 tornado near Mount Vernon, Illinois, that was surveyed by the National Weather Service yesterday, which at EF3 in this area during July is something you don't typically see. And Chelsea says we had one in Cumberland County too at EF0. So, yeah, not necessarily the time of year for tornadoes in the state of Kentucky, but it very well can happen, and it happened this past week. So, now, moving forward, looking at the 7-day forecast, I told you across the eastern half of the Bluegrass State, we need rainfall. Well, we're not necessarily getting it this next week. This is forecast rainfall totals, maybe quarter to a half inch here in this area, the Bluegrass, eastern Kentucky, a little less so as you get down into the Cumberland region. I will say about these maps, we're in this summer-like pattern. You're getting this convective activity, so sometimes it's a little tough to put these maps together because a storm could dump 1-2 inches, and then the other side of the county may not get nothing. So, but overall, look at this map, not a whole lot of rainfall to speak of, and we need a lot more. Look at the 6 to 10-day outlook. Hinting at higher confidence and above normal temperatures for that July 16th to 20th time frame. Also hitting at slightly above normal or slightly higher confidence and above normal rainfall for our neck of the woods. But again, look at that broad area of leaning toward above normal precipitation. It's some places are not going to see above normal rainfall. Some will. But this time of year, look at the precipitation outlook, can be a little bit of a crapshoot. So whether that above normal rainfall verifies with the convective nature of these storms. Moving out 8 to 14 days, July 18th to the 24th, hitting at near normal temperatures for Kentucky. Thankfully, I do not mind seeing these shades of gray and blue during the summer months. In our neck of the woods, 8 to 14-day precipitation outlook, leaning toward above normal precipitation. But again, that's over a very, very broad area of the United States. Looking at July as a whole, it started off warm, and it looks like CPC is wanting to lean that way for the month in its entirety, leaning toward higher confidence and above normal temperatures, and it could go either way in precipitation. So whether that's below, near, or above normal precipitation. And then the seasonal outlook, lastly, for the months of July, August, going into the early fall months, leaning toward above normal temperatures and above normal rainfall. So hope that pans out because, again, the past 2 falls in the state of Kentucky have ran very dry around here and really impacted pastures, really impacted, river levels along the Mississippi. We don't want to see that for a 3rd straight year. Now, I mix this up a little bit in July. I usually will do the forecasts and outlooks after the ag impacts. But in this case, I thought, well, let's talk about the forecast first because the ag impacts are kind of based on that. So currently speaking, this is from the latest crop progress and condition report. It came out this last Monday. You got 46% of corn across the state moving into the silking stage of development, milked at 12%. Soybeans emerged 90%, blooming 27%. So agriculture is moving right along, but the key is whether we're going to get enough rainfall for the corn and beans across the Bluegrass State. Currently, condition is looking fine throughout much of Kentucky. but we do have some corn, 8% of corn, the very poor, the poor category. I kind of thought this percentage may have been a little higher this week, but um, not the case. But talking with our crop specialist or our corn specialist here at UK, Chad Lee, he said corn doesn't look the greatest east of Litchfield, Kentucky, west of Litchfield, Kentucky, looking fine. So again, here's a picture I took of the corn at Spilltop yesterday when I was out there. You can see the corn curling up, that what you call pineapple kind of look to it, showing that heat stress. Pastures in Clark County. This was taken on the 2nd of July. Looking all right out there after they made some round bales. And I will say, if we do go into a drought this summer or going into fall, we're looking better in 2024 because our barns are pretty full from these spring months. Hopefully, we don't have to, you know, bite into our hay supplies. Hopefully we can save this more so for the winter months. But if it's anything like the last two falls, had to start feeding hay a little earlier in the year, just because those pastures were burnt up from these drought conditions. But something I'm a little nervous about in the way of that corn crop. This is a look at the forecast over the next 7 days. For Paducah on top, Lexington on bottom. I'll show Bowling Green and Jackson here in a second, but some things to point out. Look at Paducah first. 90 today, 90 Friday, 93 Saturday, Sunday 95, 96, 97, 95. Heat's coming back. You go down to Lexington, it's the same forecast almost. So we're a little cooler today, but otherwise we're hitting 97 next Monday and Tuesday. Look at the rain and the probability of precipitation. Low probabilities across the board. Low accumulations, if anything, across the board. Look at your dew points there. I always tell folks, whenever you get in the mid 60s, it's starting to get muggy outside. Once you hit a 70-degree dew point, that's when the heat starts getting awfully oppressive, not only for us, but animals alike. So we're going to see that heat stress index moving into the danger and emergency categories over the next week. I'm here preaching, tell folks, don't transport any animals during the heat of the afternoon. Save that for the early morning hours when that heat stress load is at a minimum. Make sure they have plenty of water. Make sure they have access to some shade. So take all this into account. But going back to the corn crop, to the crops out there, just in general, even pastures, this evapotranspiration number is what's concerning me. We're losing 2/10, maybe a quarter inch of moisture to the atmosphere on a daily basis. That adds up. And we need to replenish that with precipitation. But again, the next week, we're not seeing that. Move on to Bowling Green and Jackson, Kentucky here. Same thing. We got a high of 98 degrees for Bowling Green next Tuesday. So, Jerry, make sure you're in an air-conditioned environment next week. Save the technicians, give them a break if they can. But evapotranspiration, again, that 2/10 to quarter inch range, a little bit more approaching 3/10 of an inch on Tuesday there in the Bowling Green area. So concerning for agriculture. We have something called an irrigation manager on our website, and I was zoning into Franklin County, where the local measurement station has been lacking on precipitation the past month and even into the month of July. And corn is starting to move into some very sensitive developmental stages for water stress. Once you get into tassel and silking, we're talking the corn crop is using 3/10 of an inch per day. And if we look down at the table below, looking at Franklin County, they're losing about a couple tenths of an inch due to evapotranspiration every day, and it's not really getting um, it's not getting, what's the word I'm looking for, replenished by precipitation. So they have a negative water balance right now. And again, this is not what we want to see as corn is going through those reproductive stages now. So now moving a little farther into the year, going into the fall and into the winter, it looks like we're going to be moving into a La Nina. We were in a El Nino this past winter. La Nina is favored for winter 2024, 25, and that's the opposite of El Nino. So El Nino, above normal temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. La Nina is cooler than normal sea surface temperatures. And that leads to this variation, this average position of the jet stream, the polar jet, which usually means wetter than normal conditions for Kentucky. And I will completely take that this upcoming winter if that comes to fruition. Now, something else to mention is El Nino and La Nina can impact hurricane activity. And with us going into a La Nina, there has actually shown to be a small increase in hurricane activity across the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, and whatnot. So we've already seen an active hurricane season thus far. Saw a pretty strong hurricane move through the Caribbean just last week. The remnants going through our area this past couple days, but again, this leans to a more active hurricane season for the Atlantic. Looking at stream flow conditions moving forward throughout the month of July, some areas running near normal, some areas running below normal. So it's going to be key where we get these summertime storms hit across the area. And something else to monitor is, what's the upstream conditions going to be like into Ohio and whatnot. Me and Chip, again, we're talking a couple weeks ago how low the Ohio River actually was. Now it's since went up, but that'll be something we're watching these next few months. And lastly, the U.S. seasonal drought outlook. There's a lot of yellow on this map, and that means drought development is likely. Even the brown area, drought persisting. And you notice a large section of the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, the mid-Atlantic seaboard right there, all in those yellow brown colors suggesting I'm trying to combine the words of brown and drought, but drought is likely to develop across our neck of the woods here in the United States, but not just here. You see up there in the Northwest, you see it across the Plains region, Oklahoma and Kansas. So you don't see a lot of green color on here indicating drought removal likely. And I guess this is something we would expect this time of year with high heat across the United States. So, and the significant wildland fire potential outlook we're finding in Kentucky, but just to our east in those areas that have seen below normal rainfall, the seasonal drought outlook is hinting it's going to persist out there. A little bit more fire potential out that way. So, in summary, June, below normal rainfall, above normal temperatures in place. About 30% of Kentucky is now deemed abnormally dry by the U.S. Drought Monitor. Slight portion of northern Kentucky in a moderate drought. We'll see if that increases over the next month, even this next week. I'll be interested to see how the data comes in prior to the State Drought Committee getting back together on Monday. Concerns are building mainly across the eastern half of Kentucky for agriculture and mainly that corn crop out there. Maybe some pastures. The pastures seem to be doing all right at this point, but if we go the next week, 2 weeks with this high heat in place, pastures will be hurting too. They'll start getting a little crunchy. Outlooks are hinting at above normal temperatures winning out for the remainder of July. Precipitation, not the highest confidence in a world. And then, of course, we just talked about a seasonal drought outlook heading toward drought expansion over the next few months across mainly the eastern half of Kentucky. So, our next regularly scheduled webinar right around the corner, August 1st. So, I think Jerry may be up. That might be wrong, but Jerry or Chip will take over in August. If you have any drought reports, please use the Kentucky Drought and Hydrologic Impact Report or QR code there. But with that, I'll open up to questions and discussion. So thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, Matt. Any questions? Matt, it really seems like two states out there. Being down here in Bowling Green, boy, it's green and farm ponds are full, and like you've shown, we've had quite a bit of rain, especially lately, especially during July. Have you looked at the July numbers? I'm just curious if of course, this is going to vary depending on where you are in the state, but are we doing okay or better in July as far as rainfall, or kind of
So,
about the same as?
So if I pull up my data right now, this includes data from you all with the Kentucky Meset and airports, ASOS stations across the state. And over the first 10 days of July, the state has averaged 1.6 inches of rainfall, which is about 2 inch above normal, 2/10 of an inch above normal. Now, the bluegrass has averaged 1.14 inches, which is about a quarter inch below normal. Eastern Kentucky inch on average, which is approaching a half inch below normal, but Western and Central Kentucky both running above normal. So it took that same trend like we saw in June, and it's kind of carried over into July. Now, with that convective activity, I say the bluegrass average is at 1.14 inches. Not everybody got in on that rainfall. So I know some places have just continually missed out. There was at one point, Jerry, I believe I didn't mow my grass for 3 straight weeks. And while I'm on here for the folks, Turf always preaches to me at UK, don't cut your grass when it starts getting this hot and dry outside. I see some people around my neighborhood, they put their lawnmower on that 2 inch setting and they go after it, but that's just going to burn up the grass even quicker. And I know your grass may not look the best if you don't mow for 3 weeks, but you might ultimately save it. So yeah.
No, that's interesting. And I'm curious too about those June temperatures. I don't remember all that much heat, but it's again, unless you hit 100, you don't remember it as much, maybe. And being a little drier, I think that helps some. I was surprised to see how just warm we were during June.
There was, yeah, multiple 90-degree days, but it seemed like it was more so just consistent heat. I don't remember getting a lot of breaks, but again, humidity wasn't terrible. Um, Hopefully, maybe I should knock on wood when I say that, but um,
Right.
yeah, hopefully it doesn't come and bite us in July. But yeah, so
The forecast is pretty brutal.
it does look
Uh,
brutal. I'm not looking forward to it.
And in some ways, you look at the surrounding states drought, and especially east and southeast, and you have to feel like we're a little lucky, and that we've gotten the rains we have had, and hopefully that'll just continue. I was a little surprised again at the long-term forecast still keeping us in that above normal, beyond the next 10 days, but good to see at least. A
Yeah,
little
yeah,
encouraging.
yeah, yeah. Thing with those outlooks, like I remember I've been looking at those the past 2 weeks, and sure, Western Kentucky saw above normal rainfall, but not so much around here in the bluegrass region. And it just it's tough, or I would assume tough to make these outlooks and these type of summertime patterns. So, um, yeah.
Any other questions for Matt? All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what that drought monitor looks like next week,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you again, Matt. And yeah, I'll be presenting, I guess, in about 3 weeks from now. So hope to see everyone then, and stay cool between now and then. And please join us next month. So thank you, Matt. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.